welcome. In today's video, we're going to be mixing up some cocktails. The goal here is really just a chill vibe as we make a variety of drinks. And I'm going to be focusing on gin in this video. I have some here and thought I would do some drinks focused on it. We won't stick to just gin. Gotta sneak in at least one, the brown liquor, on this channel. I've got a Bombay Sapphire here. It's a classic, available basically everywhere. I like it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite gin. It'd probably be Botanist, which you've seen me use on the channel. But there's a lot of great products out there, but I've got some Bombay Sapphire, so that's what we're gonna go with. And it'll work well for a variety of cocktails. And we're going to start with the Tom Collins, which is a very classic drink. It's a highball, so it'll be liquor served with a mixer, in this case soda, and with a little bit of lemon to add some zip to it. I feel like this drink has kind of been fading away from the collective memory. I don't know, you'll see it ordered in like old movies, but I don't hear much about it these days. Let me get my shaker to start with here. Since we have lemon juice, we're going to want to shake this cocktail. Give myself some room and let's pour up our gin. We're going with 2 ounces of gin. Then I've got some lemon. We're going for a 3/4 ounce of fresh lemon juice, which will be so delicious. Just gonna get that squeezed out here using my measuring cup. I do have the jigger at hand, but these little measuring cups are so nice for measuring out different volumes for cocktails like this. So we're just gonna get 3/4 ounce of lemon, and that'll go into the shaker. And then to help balance that out, we're going to go with a little bit of a simple syrup. We're going to go with a 1/2 ounce, and this is a rich, simple syrup, so 2-to-1 ratio, prepared with heat to be able to dissolve that volume of sugar in that water. But that'll give that nice sweet and sour with the lemon to really spruce this up. And then this is made with soda water, and I'm going off of Jeffrey Morgenthaler's method from his book, The Bar Book, which is an extremely wonderful resource. It's taught me most everything I know about making cocktails, as he does a very good job of explaining a lot of classics and new methods. Really great source of information, but he mixes the soda water into the shaker. I know you're a little worried about losing some of the carbonation, but his take on it is that if you add the soda afterwards, you kind of end up with layers where you just get club soda and booze in separate layers, and this keeps them a little more incorporated. So we're going to get some ice in our shaker. And we'll shake this with these ingredients first, and we'll do that incorporation of the soda water into the shaker after we've done our shake here. And the way it has a chance to mingle all together as we pour it into our glass. Being a highball, this is a great choice if, say, you're at a social function, like a work function. You can have a drink that you can sip on through the evening. You're not just pounding shots of tequila at the bar. And stay nice and hydrated so you can stay coherent. But it's also just a tasty classic. And something that's easy to make with ingredients that are often on hand. You know, for an impromptu party or request for mixing drinks, you can have this under your belt. So I'm going to open up the shaker here, and we're going to add that soda water. We're going to go with about a couple ounces here. You can kind of do as much as you want if you're inclined. When I'm making highballs, I'll often go a bit more than this. And partly sometimes that's just like filling up the glass that you're using. But this bartender is a pro, and he has nice defined proportions for a drink like this. So we've got that soda incorporated. I'm just gonna pour it out into my highball glass here. I'm trying to pour gently, the carbonation. And he also recommends you don't go through an additional layer of strainer, which can take away the carbonation. And there we have a beautiful Tom Collins. Alright, next up we're going to do a stone cold classic, the Negroni. This is such a simple drink in conception, with equal parts gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. But it just ends up so perfect. Just a brilliant formulation. We're gonna stir this drink, so I'm grabbing my mixing glass here. And since my jigger has a 1 ounce measure, I'm just gonna use it because that'll be easy. We're doing 1 ounce of each of our ingredients. So let's grab the Campari. Pour out 1 ounce here. Beautiful red color. And we're doing our mood lighting in this video to keep it super chill, but just gorgeous red color. Then we'll again just need 1 ounce of sweet vermouth. Of course, that's one of the things you can play around with for which one you might like best in your Negroni. Quality ingredients make a big deal here since it's just 3 simple ingredients. And then we'll go with 1 ounce of our gin. This is a drink that bartenders love to play with. It's a great base, substituting different things, making different variations. Gotta say, the classic really is a winner. And this is optional, not every bartender may use this, but a dash of orange bitters. Usually serve it with an orange peel, so kind of amp up that orange note a bit. I think it's a nice touch, so I'm going with it in this case. And we're going to need some ice, because we're going to want to chill and dilute. Get some cubes into our mixing glass here. This nice and crisp and cold. Let's stir things up here. Try to get that nice smooth rotation happening in the glass. Chill and dilution, both so important to the finished product. Cocktail like this. And go ahead and grab my glass. And we'll do the Negroni on the rocks. So let's get some ice in there. There we go. And then let's grab our strainer here, get it on our mixing glass, and strain our Negroni into our final cup here. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Beautiful fragrance from this drink too. That Campari. That hit of orange. And let's get the peeler out so we can get ourselves a bit of orange peel to finish this up with a nice bit of garnish. There we go. And of course we're going to express the oils onto the drink. That wonderful hit of orange oil. Go around the outside rim of the glass and then tuck it in there. Perfect for the drinker. And we gotta try it. Absolutely beautiful. Just love it. Next up, we're going to make a cocktail with a fantastic name, Satan's Whiskers. This originally comes from the Savoy cocktail book, but I'm using the recipe provided in the book Bitters by Brad Thomas Parsons. This is another just must-have definitive reference in my mind. Very well researched, great recipes, both classic and modern, an understanding of maybe more the original formulations and modern tastes, so highly recommended. So for this, it does involve some fresh orange juice, so I'm going to grab an orange here and my juicer. The orange lid, it is critical that you match the color of your juicer to the color of your fruit. Just gonna go ahead and squeeze this to get that wonderful fresh orange juice out of there. Really makes it to use fresh juice, of course. And then this cocktail has a couple of variations. You can use either orange curacao or Grand Marnier. pouring out about a half ounce of orange juice here. And apparently, if you order it straight, that would be with the Grand Marnier. And if you order your Satan's Whiskers curly, you would go for the orange curacao. Continuing with the gin here, about a half ounce. This isn't overly boozy. Grab the sweet vermouth. I've actually made this basically as a punch for parties. That works pretty well for that, especially if you go with some more ice for more dilution. Something not too potent, but tastes quite good. It's gone over well when I've done it. So a mix of sweet vermouth and dry vermouth. And I happen to have here this Dolin Blanc, which viewers were kind enough to point out for me is different than dry vermouth. Actually, it's a white vermouth. I always just differentiate between the red bottle and the lighter colored bottle, but there is some subtlety and nuance here. So this does a call for a dry vermouth. I'm going to use the Blanc. Find it works equally as well. And we're just going with basically a half ounce of each of the vermouths. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that out here into my mixing glass. This is where the little measure comes in handy. Really easy to do stuff like this. Let's go ahead and add that to our shaker. And now we reach for the Grand Marnier. And I will be honest, I much prefer orange curacao for an orange liqueur, like the more dry orange curacao. Grand Marnier is so rich and pretty sweet. Of course, it can be delicious in cocktails and make a margarita feel kind of luxurious, but I generally prefer the flavor profile of an orange curacao. And I'm not talking about the super sweet, super cheap stuff, but some of the nice versions of that. But like I said, you can choose whether you want it curly or straight for your Satan's Whiskers, and choose accordingly as your palate might desire. Kind of want to have a couple different takes on it. He also suggests in his book to potentially substitute blood orange juice for the orange, which is a great idea. I really like blood orange, so it's a perfect idea. And we're going to hit this with 3 dashes of orange bitters, just to give a little more orange kick there and a bit of spice. Alright, so then we'll just grab some ice to add to our shaker here. Get this cooled down, get shaken up, get a nice texture to the drink. Getting our ice cubes in the shaker here. Okay. And grab the lid. And let's give this a good shake. I'm gonna break that ice up, feel the outside of the shaker getting cold and frosty. I've got a nice little glass here. We can go ahead and strain our cocktail into the glass. Wonderful stuff. All right. And since we've got the orange juice, the Grand Marnier, let's go ahead and finish with a nice orange accent with some of the orange peel. So cut myself off a bit here. Again, expressing those oils onto the drink, that extra hit of flavor. Wipe the rim and garnish. And this is our Satan's Whiskers cocktail, made straight as it were, and very delicious. Okay, now we're gonna get a little wild. We're gonna stick with the gin theme, but going to do something that I would consider to be pretty 70s. And we are going to make the Alexander cocktail. You might be familiar with the brandy Alexander, but the plain old humdrum Alexander cocktail involves gin. And since that's the theme we're going with, we're going to whip one up here. So let's go ahead and get started. The mixing glass with my mixing cup, with my measuring cup, going to add some gin. As I said, I associate this with the 70s, like with the brandy Alexander. I think a lot of creamy drinks, juice heavy drinks from that era. But apparently it's from the early 1900s. And here the recipe calls for creme de cacao and calls for dark creme de cacao. You have dark and light, of course. But I'm going to utilize the homemade chocolate liqueur we made in a previous video. This is really just a cocoa nib infused vodka, the little bit of sweetener. So this is not going to be as potently sweet or perhaps even as chocolatey as creme de cacao you might buy off the shelf. Of course, there are some insanely sweet versions out there. So this is dialing this drink back a little bit, because we're talking about creme de cacao, and then we're going to add some half and half as well. It's a pretty wild concoction, one that you definitely should drink in moderation or face some serious consequences. But the nice thing about having made that cocoa nib vodka is that it'll be a little bit less potent. I do have some beautiful creme de cacao liqueur, and I'm gonna just kind of do part of my measure here with that. Basically a 1/4 ounce for 1 ounce total of our creme de cacao. So we're kind of using my more milder cocoa nib vodka with a bit of the real thing, and that'll just kind of rein in some of the intensity here. Of course, you can go for the full candy effect if you like, but I think that might work a little better with the brandy version versus the gin. But we're just kind of playing around with the formula here, experimenting a little bit, just to kind of get something a little bit different. And then, as I said, we're going to want some half and half, since this is a creamy drink. equal proportions, so 1 ounce here. And we will add that to our shaker. And then we're going to want to shake this up with some ice again. So back into our bowl of frozen cubes. Slip some of those into our shaker here. Most of the way to an ice cream sundae at this point. Just one with a serious kick. Give myself some space here and let's shake this up. And we'll get a fancy goblet to put this drink into. Seems appropriate. Pour that out and you can see it's nice and creamy. It's a milkier color because I used that cacao nib vodka. Not as much of that dark coloration from the dark creme de cacao. And then to finish this off, we're going to hit it with a bit of nutmeg. Obviously, if you have some fresh nutmeg to grate over the top of the drink, that would be the best choice. But I'm just going to hit it with a sprinkle of grated nutmeg that I have on hand. Give a little bit of spice to that richness, and let's give it a shot. It's pretty good. I have to say this isn't a drink I would necessarily choose for myself. It's kind of intense with the gin, but it's interesting and something different. Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to make a vodka cocktail. We're going to use the Hunter's vodka that I prepared in a previous video. This is an infused vodka in different Slavic, Russian countries. Wonderful spices like allspice, juniper, peppercorns, coriander, fenugreek, cinnamon, anise, the whole works. So a wonderful kind of Christmassy, spicy liqueur. It just has a touch of sweetness though, so basically flavored vodka, or as we talked about, gin. So we're going to do about 1.5 ounces of this. It is so fragrant and spicy. And the cocktail we're making is called Chirona wine, and it's from the Kashka cookbook, which I have cooked from before, and where we did these, both the cocoa nib vodka and this one. Gonna get some simple syrup in there. And this is a red wine cocktail. Chirona apparently means red in Ukrainian, so a play on that idea. And some sweet vermouth, so a fortified wine. So a red wine cocktail, effectively a mulled wine with all these spices that we're bringing in. A cold red wine cocktail. It's basically a sangaree, which will, of course, evoke sangria, same concept. Basically, adding some extra booze to red wine, some wonderful spices. Get a little bit of vermouth in there. But let's get our bottle of wine opened up here. One recommendation is to use this with an already open bottle of wine. maybe it's not so perfect for drinking on its own anymore, not like when it's freshly opened. So slipping it into a cocktail where some of the subtleties of its flavor are not quite as important or at the forefront. Potential great use of a bottle you have open. But I didn't have one open, so we're gonna crack this one open. Get my corkscrew in here. And utilizing the powers of leverage, we will pop that out of there. And I am no dirty, stinking cork sniffer, so we won't smell that thing. Just playing around. I'm not much of a wine person. Wouldn't have this much to tell you about the aroma. Let's grab a rocks glass full of ice, and we're going to want to stir our cocktail up with some more ice to get it nice and cold. Being a bit of a food and drink aficionado, I know I should know more about wine, but it's just one of those topics I haven't focused my time on. Let me know if you have a sense of wines that might be good for this application. So we're going to go ahead and stir that up. Grab our strainer. We're going to strain this off into our glass full of ice. Even though we're not mulling this wine on the stove with those spices, there's still a lot of fragrance coming off of here. That vodka really has a beautiful spicy note to it. And again, we're going to hit it with a little bit of nutmeg on the top to just bring out those wintry vibes. And again, of course, fresh nutmeg grated here would be best. But we're working with what we have. Let's give it a shot. Oh my, that's yummy. Just really evokes that beautiful, wintry, spicy mulled wine, but nice and cold, beautiful kick and refreshing too. Very tasty Chirona wine cocktail. Let us move on to our next beverage. All right, to finish things out, we are going to make a whiskey drink. This is a bourbon drink, and it is the Revolver, a quite simple drink to make, actually. I'm again referencing the bar book for this recipe. It's a pretty classic recipe. We're going to hit it with 2 ounces of bourbon, and he recommends a nice spicy one. That is really the main ingredient of the drink, if you will. So something that's going to be enjoyable to drink. And go ahead and add this to our mixing glass. And then the other main ingredient is coffee liqueur. I'm going to use a classic here with Kahlua. We're going to go with half an ounce. You can use any coffee liqueur that you prefer. things wonderfully with the bourbon, and then we're going to bring in some orange to get wonderful orange notes, which work so well with this. So let's get that into our mixing glass. And then a couple dashes of orange bitters, leaning into those orange vibes and kind of upping that spicy bitter note. And that's really about all there is to it. We're going to want to get our ice again and load up our mixing glass. We know the routine at this point. Get some ice in here, and gonna stir it up to get this nice and cold, and dilute it down just a bit before we go into the glass. Just get a couple more cubes into there. There we go. Perfect. And give ourselves some space again so we can stir this up. Grab our bar spoon and get things moving around in there. Swirling and swirling and swirling. Getting this nice and chilled. And let's grab a cocktail glass here along with our strainer. And into the glass there with our revolver cocktail. Cannot wait to dive into this one. And we're going to garnish with orange peel. And we're going to do something a little bit different this time around, involving fire, of course, because that makes it more exciting. I'm going to light up a match here, and we're going to do flamed orange peel. So our goal here is going to be to light the orange oils on fire, expressing the flamed orange onto the top surface of the drink. There we go. Fire, fire, fire. Please be safe with this, folks. Do be careful, but this adds a wonderful extra dimension to that orange flavor to get some of those flamed orange oils on there. And then, of course, again, rub the peel on the rim of the glass. And let's taste. Oh, that is just delectable. You could, of course, do it with regular orange peel, but love getting that extra note from the flaming orange peel. Just adds those kind of extra smoky notes on top of the bourbon. So good.